Vlado Taneski was a name known in the small Macedonian town of Kicevo. He was a local journalist, a man who reported on the events shaping his community. But beneath the surface of his ordinary profession lay a horrifying secret. Taneski was not just reporting on crime, he was the perpetrator of the very crimes he covered. He was a serial killer who used his journalistic platform to write about his own victims. His case stands as a chilling and unprecedented example of a killer chronicling his own atrocities. The revelation sent shockwaves far beyond the borders of Macedonia. It forced a confrontation with the darkest aspects of human nature and the potential for deception hidden in plain sight. This is the story of Vlado Taneski, the journalist who became a monster. Please like and subscribe if you're new to the channel. Born in 1952, Vlado Taneski's early life was marked by significant hardship. He grew up in a difficult environment that left deep psychological scars. His childhood was reportedly filled with abuse and neglect. The abuse he suffered came from both parents, creating a foundation of trauma. However, accounts suggest his relationship with his mother, Gorica, was particularly complex and damaging. She was described as a cruel and overbearing figure. This difficult relationship fostered a deep-seated resentment within Taneski. The emotional wounds inflicted during these formative years would later manifest in horrific ways. His mother's influence, or the reaction against it, became a central theme in his later crimes. In 1973, Taneski married Vesna. Together they had 2 children. He attempted to build a conventional life, but the pressures mounted. Like many in the region, Taneski faced persistent financial struggles. Providing for his family proved challenging, adding another layer of stress to his life. These economic difficulties likely exacerbated existing tensions within his marriage. His marriage to Vesna eventually broke down. They separated in early 2004, a period that tragically coincided with the beginning of his known killing spree. The dissolution of his family life may have been a trigger or a contributing factor to the escalation of his violent tendencies. Taneski began his career working for local media outlets in Kicevo. He wrote for newspapers, covering various community events and issues. His early work seemed unremarkable, fitting the profile of a small-town reporter. However, he gained a reputation for questionable journalistic practices. He was known to plagiarize articles, lifting content from other sources without proper attribution. This demonstrated a lack of integrity early in his career. Despite this, Taneski developed an intense and morbid interest in crime reporting. He gravitated towards covering the darker events in the community. This focus would soon take on a disturbing new dimension. He began covering local murders with an unsettling level of detail. His articles were often graphic and contained information that seemed unusually specific. This fascination with violent crime was not merely professional, it was deeply personal. The first known crime attributed to Vlado Taneski was the murder of Mitra Simjanoska. This horrific event occurred in 2004. It marked the beginning of a terrifying pattern. Mitra Simjanoska's body was discovered in a landfill. The location and method of disposal would become grimly familiar in subsequent cases. Her death signaled the emergence of a predator in Kicevo. Taneski continued his crimes over the next few years, operating undetected. He preyed on vulnerable women in the community. The pattern of his victims began to reveal a disturbing connection. Investigators later noted that his victims bore a physical resemblance to his mother. This suggested a deep psychological link between his childhood trauma and his adult violence. His crimes were not random acts, but targeted expressions of his inner turmoil. His modus operandi was brutal and consistent. He would kidnap his victims, subjecting them to sexual assault. The final act of violence was strangulation. After killing his victims, he would dispose of their bodies. He often used plastic bags to conceal and transport the remains. The landfill became his macabre burial ground. In 2008, the town was rocked by another murder. Lubica Lakoska became his second known victim. Her death followed the same horrifying pattern as Mitra Simjanoska's. Later that same year, he claimed another life. Zivana Temelkoska was murdered, becoming his third confirmed victim. The community lived under a shadow of fear, unaware the killer was among them, reporting on their terror. As the murders continued, Vlado Taneski was there, covering every development. He wrote articles for the local newspaper Nova Macedonia, detailing the police investigations. But his reporting was far from objective journalism. He included explicit details in his articles that had not been released to the public. These were facts only the perpetrator could possibly know. It was a dangerous game he was playing, a perverse form of confession. His articles, filled with this intimate, privileged knowledge, began to raise red flags. Investigators noticed the uncanny accuracy and the inclusion of specific, unpublicized details. The journalist seemed to know too much. Police began to focus their attention on individuals with close ties to the victims or the investigation. Vlado Taneski, as the reporter covering the cases, was interviewed multiple times. His detailed knowledge initially seemed helpful, but it soon became suspicious. Investigators started using his own reporting against him. They cross-referenced the details in his articles with the confidential evidence from the crime scenes. The overlap was undeniable and deeply disturbing. They noticed specific obscure details he included in his stories. For instance, he mentioned the type of cable used to bind one victim, a detail not released publicly. This level of specific knowledge was damning. DNA evidence collected from the crime scenes provided the crucial link. Samples found on the victims matched Taneski's DNA profile. The scientific evidence confirmed the suspicions raised by his reporting. Other incriminating evidence was reportedly found during searches. Items discovered in his home further connected him to the murders. The case against him solidified rapidly. Vlado Taneski was arrested in June 2008. The man who had reported on the town's tragedies was revealed to be their source. The community reeled from the shock of the betrayal. He was charged with 3 counts of rape and murder. The evidence against him seemed overwhelming. A trial was anticipated to bring justice for the victims and their families. However, Vlado Taneski never faced trial. Just days after his arrest, he was found dead in his prison cell. His death brought an abrupt end to the legal process. The official cause of death was suicide by drowning. He reportedly submerged his head in a bucket of water. His death occurred before he could be formally questioned about his motives or potential other crimes. His death left many questions unanswered. The full extent of his crimes and the psychological drivers behind them remained shrouded in mystery. The victims' families were denied the closure of a trial. Police suspected there might have been a possible 4th victim, Gorka Pavleska, who disappeared in 2003, fit the profile of Taneski's victims and disappeared shortly before his known spree began. Her case remains unsolved, but the suspicion lingers. The case of Vlado Taneski remains a chilling and unique example in the annals of true crime. It highlights the potential for a double life and the capacity for extreme violence to hide behind a facade of normalcy. His use of this profession to document his own atrocities is particularly disturbing. He left behind a legacy of horror and mystery. The story of the journalist who reported on his own murders serves as a stark reminder of the darkness that can reside within individuals and the profound impact of unresolved trauma. His case continues to be studied as a disturbing intersection of crime, psychology, and the perversion of the journalistic role.